All right, there we go. Okay, guys, we got DJ Brown here today. DJ, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
No problem, man. Glad you're be able to join us today and give us some good information on leading teams remotely. So, but if you want, just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm 28 years old. I'm living in Northwest Indiana, about 45 minutes outside of Chicago. A little town called Highland. I'm husband to my beautiful wife Jenna. I'm a daddy to Paisley, who's 3 years old, and my son Jack, who's 18 months old, and just trying to survive the whirlwind of having two kids, 3 and under. But yeah, I've been working with a company called Robotics Health for a few years now, and another company that does similar services for some years before that, and yeah, loving it. Looking forward to chatting more today.
Awesome, yeah. So, with those two companies, is that when you started working remotely, or has it just been the last couple of years, or what? Where have you been with working remotely?
So yeah, right out of grad school, my first job was in the industrial athletic training setting.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who don't know what industrial athletic training is, it's basically injury prevention services, ergonomics, injury treatment, things like that in the industrial setting. So working occupational, industries, so manufacturing, distribution, utilities, all that kind of stuff. Just kind of working with your normal everyday people that are out there using their bodies, to do their job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those people need healthcare just like athletes. So that's kind of where industrial athletic trainers come in. So my first job right out of grad school was in a company like that. We had a lot of different clients all over the country, which means we had a lot of different employees all over the country. And I kind of found myself in a role where, I was the only full-time person at this company. So I, kind of was supervising and training and just kind of leading, that team of people. And then, fast forward a couple of years, made the transition to Robotics Health, a much larger company, a much larger scale, doing the same role essentially, just with a much larger team. I have a team of about 23 employees that are spread out across the whole country. I have some people that are in New York, some people in Indiana, pretty close, some people in Texas, all over the place. But our company is in all 50 states. We're in 6 continents. We're in 63 countries. So, I mean, it's a very remote, style of work. So
Sure. So yeah, that's some people. I mean, they might not understand the concept of like leading remotely, but like having to like be able to reach those people and still lead efficiently. Now, getting into remote leading or remote leadership. Now, was there any challenges that you discovered getting into that compared to like leading person to person at the same place? Is there any challenges you've discovered?
yeah, for sure. I mean, it's definitely, it's different than traditional leadership in a lot of different ways. There's a lot of the philosophies and the same types of mentalities and strategies can be applied to both, but it's very different when you can't, walk down the hallway, peek your head in on your, subordinate and say, hey, how are things going? And kind of watch them work or read their body language, how they're engaged, that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of different strategies that you have to kind of adapt and modify and do differently in the remote setting.
Yeah. What you say strategies? What do you have one that you kind of as your go-to strategy as far as like reading how your people are doing or whatnot?
I mean, that's kind of a loaded question. There's really no strategy. For me at least, it's kind of a number of different strategies.
Gotcha.
Practically speaking, I would say, the biggest challenge is not having that constant contact with one another, right? A lot of leaders, in the remote setting, some challenges that they find themselves in, I feel like are due to kind of being reactive rather than proactive, right? They kind of wait for, something to happen or wait for their, employee to reach out to them, like with a problem that they're having or something, rather than, kind of taking the step to, go out and approach these people and approach your people ahead of time see how they're doing, ask them questions. How can I help them as a leader? What do they need from me?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of challenges are they facing that I can maybe help them mitigate a little bit? That kind of mentality, having that proactive mentality is really important. Another strategy, I guess, if you will, is just the means and the frequency of communication has to be a little bit different too. So again, if in a traditional leadership setting where you're in the same building, you
Yep.
have those constant walking past each other in the hallway, or you kind of have those touch points all the time. Whereas in a remote setting, if you aren't intentional about it, you could go days or weeks without talking to somebody on your team, and that's unacceptable. And
Right.
obviously that doesn't give them a good experience either.
Mm-mm.
So one of the things that I kind of have tried to live by is always budgeting myself some travel budget so I can get out there, get out, be in person with my people at some point, to do some of the things that you can't do virtually, right?
Yeah.
This stuff is great, where we're face to face, and
Yep.
but there's still no um, that human contact, right? And
Right.
a lot
Right.
of things that you can't get virtually. So always, budgeting to get out there, budgeting to make sure that you're out there and you're actually in person, seeing them work, talking to the people that they're working with, gathering feedback, learning more about what they have to deal with on a day-to-day basis so that you can understand it and help lead them better, right?
Yeah.
And in between those times when you're not in person, you want to have regular, constant communication like this, we're
Absolutely. Yeah.
face to face. So the people that are going to be listening to the podcast can't tell, but we're looking at each other through,
Right. Yeah.
right? But having regular contact with video,
Mm-hmm.
Zoom or Ring Central or Skype or FaceTime or something where you can actually see one another. I can kind of read your emotions, your nonverbal communication a little bit better than I could if it was over the phone or
Right. Yeah.
email. That's really important, and doing that regularly is essential, right?
Yep.
And then even breaking it one level further down than that, right? You want to get in person when you can. When you can't, you should be doing regular, maybe bi-weekly, monthly video meetings,
Yeah.
something in that line to just have the touch points. But then in between those times, a really quick phone call, a really quick text, a quick email, like just checking in, even if nothing is, no communications really need to happen. I'm not conveying anything new to you, or, bringing you a message from corporate or anything like that. It's just checking in, letting
Right.
them know you're still thinking about them, letting them know that you're there if they need you, just kind of letting them feel like they're not, invisible.
Mm.
Is
Yeah. And I think
kind of
that's
the
great. Yeah.
yeah.
How you said in the intentional aspect of it. I think that's key. I mean, because your people, some of those people could be the only ones at that site or in that
Mhm.
location. And so they could start feeling like they are on an island if they don't
Mhm.
have that connection with you, which then could turn into like loss retention or poor retention rates and all that, and just disgruntled team members. And so I think, yeah, being intentional, like you said, is huge, and taking that time however you can, like you said, in between the video chats or between the in-person meetings, just sending a, hey, you doing okay? Like,
Mhm.
how can I help you? I think that's huge just within the remote leading world. Yeah, people can really feel or get that loneliness without any of that contact. So I think that is a great point for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah. So do you think people kind of, when they hear like people are leading remotely, or things are done remotely, do you think there's kind of some negative like ideologies or thought processes on leading remotely from people?
I mean, I think there definitely can be, and I think
Mm,
some of the ones that I've heard are like you can't possibly have the same type of leadership relationship with somebody if you're not in person. Like it's
right.
not as personal, that kind of a mentality. But I would disagree. I
Yeah.
mean, I think it just takes a different approach, and it does take a little bit more of an effort, I think, to get some of the same results that you might be able to if you're in the same building with somebody. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it's
Right.
definitely it's got its pros and it's got its cons, but it's absolutely still the type of relationship and the type of leadership, that so many people want to be a part of. They just have to kind of look at it differently through a
For
different
sure.
lens.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. And nowadays, I feel like a lot of businesses or companies are starting to do more of the remote leading, just because I think it opens up more doors and more opportunities if you're not
Hmm.
stuck to being at the same place.
Right.
I think it gives you so much more room to grow and so much more ability to reach more people um,
Hmm.
that way. And so, yeah,
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think it definitely has so many benefits, but then like you said, everything has its pros and cons. And so, but I think that's why it's so important that we learn to lead remotely. I mean, besides that, do you think there's any other reasons that leading remotely is important to learn how to do for anyone?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the way the world's going.
Mm,
You kind of alluded to it a little bit, but I think that it's going to become more and more common.
yeah.
We're in a very technology dependent world. We're in a very fast paced, changing environments all the time. And the business, the leadership world,
Hmm.
corporate world is no different, right? It's companies are trying to scale their footprints as big as they can, cover as many places, as many clients, as many services, or sell as many products, or whatever it is, whatever it is that your company does. You're trying to expand that, right, as much as
Right.
possible. Most companies are not the little mom and pop shops that just work in one little town and that's what they want to do. Most
Right.
companies are trying to get bigger, and in order to get bigger, you're going to have people that aren't right there, right?
Yeah.
In order to be effective and to do what you do well, you have to have leaders that can kind of help manage those people effectively and help manage those services effectively and know what's happening, kind of have their fingerprint on everything that's going on. Not to say like micromanaging or anything like that.
Yeah.
You have to know what's going on. You have to have your ducks in a row and kind of
Right.
be able to keep everything controlled. I use the term bounded autonomy, right? My people,
Mm-hmm.
bounded autonomy, right? They're at a remote location. They may, like you said, be the only person at their locate a site, servicing a client or whatever. So they do have a lot of freedom to
Right.
do what they need to do and kind of run the program how they want to run it, and kind of have some flexibility. But they also do have the limitations of working under an umbrella company that
Mm-hmm.
policies and procedures that need to be followed, and making sure that we're providing consistent services from one location to a next. Because if you're not providing consistent services, then there's going to be issues, you know what I mean? So there's
For
got to
sure. Yeah.
be, but there's also got to be some autonomy and trust there as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think just being able to reciprocate the same idea to everybody is huge and important, like you said, because you're all doing the different things. It's gonna
Hmm.
wear
Yeah.
down on everything. Now, some people who might be already leading remotely, they might be dealing with like struggles. It might not be working for them. Is that maybe just because of their personality, the people they're trying to lead, or are they doing something maybe that's not helping them lead well remotely?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's probably no right answer to that question. It's
Yeah.
probably very individually based on
Hmm.
different circumstances and things of that nature. But I would say that a lot of challenges remote leaders often run into is they try and lead remotely the same way they would in a traditional setting, right? They try
Gotcha.
and apply all the same principles, all the the fun buzzwords and things that they've read in books, or gone to conferences, and like I do all that stuff too. That's all great. Like, it's
Right.
really great information, but you have to learn to apply it in a different way, and you have to learn to adapt what you're doing to your specific team and your specific needs and your specific environment. And
Okay.
I think that the inability to adapt what you're doing, and kind of being too rigid or strict and trying to just lead a team this way because you think that that's the way it should be done
Yeah,
is kind of a recipe for disaster. And that's going to be
for
kind of how
sure.
you end up finding yourself with unhappy people, disengaged employees, not getting the services done the way you want, that kind of stuff. So
Gotcha. I'm gonna ask you to be a little transparent. Was there anything when you started that you have realized as you grew, like, oh crap, that's hurting me. Maybe I need to change that, or wow, that's not working so well for me. Like that's gonna cause some problems if I don't change it.
Yeah, I mean, exactly kind of what I just said.
Yeah.
I went through. I take a lot of pride in like trying to constantly learn new things, and
Mm-hmm.
I read a lot of these books, and I go to these conferences, and I'll do everything I can to fill my head with like good, solid, sound leadership information, all that kind of stuff. And what I did was I thought like I had all these cool tools and I could throw them in there and, they would just work. But I
Yeah.
didn't understand the ways that they needed to be adapted, like specifically, speaking, I thought like I could have these, this team of people and they would all just, I felt like the way that I could lead them would be like the same way that I coach a basketball team, right? Like I can get them to be a great team and
Mm-hmm.
have fun with each other and have this good rapport. But then you slowly start to realize, well, these people live nowhere near each other. They never see each other. They don't talk to one another. So like I thought that, oh, I'm going to be this, fun leader. Like I'm going to do all these great, team bonding things, but you slowly realize like, I can't do that in this setting, right? It's
Yeah.
different. Well, you can do it. It's just different.
Differently. Yeah.
Have like well, let's go to a ropes course and do this team bonding activity together because
Right.
that would cost a whole lot of money.
Yeah. Travel. Yep.
Spot, and that's not something that is always in the budget. So you have to kind of be creative. Whether it's team video calls, where you get everybody on the same call so they can see each other. Videos have to be on. Make sure that there's some face-to-face interaction, kind of just round table things like what's going well at my site, what's going well at your site, what am I dealing with, or what are you dealing with, that kind of stuff. That works with remote settings. Another thing, like try doing some fun things that just aren't work related, but that can be done remotely. Like I have a fantasy football league with my team, right? So we set something up with all of my team members. We got together, drafted at the same time. Like we try and trade with one another, and I'm trash talking my employees, beat them, and then they all smoke me, and I end up losing every week anyways. But it's just fun, and it kind of creates the conversation. It gets people involved with one another. So like you said, they don't feel like they're on an island. I mean, they may see somebody, but they know others are out there, right? I think that's the biggest challenge, but
for sure,
you figure it out, it works.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. Using the fantasy football or something, just anything.
March Madness. I mean, you could do whatever. You could do like a weight loss challenge, with your people, or a steps challenge. I mean, just stuff with your people only. Not necessarily always like the company wide. Like, because our company, we have 400 plus employees, right? We could do a big company wide thing, but that's not gonna
as intimate there.
Facilitate that team feeling, right? Because they're just lost in it. They're people. But when you do stuff on smaller level team type bonding things, so it's just me and just my people in this league, right? And it's not 100 people fantasy.
Yeah,
that'd be horrible anyways. Like just stuff like that where it's just them. Every time I bring on somebody new, I'll send out a mass email to everybody on my team, and I'll have them introduce them. I'll have them tell them what their favorite food is, maybe what their hobbies are, what clients they service, just to kind of get everybody at least introduced. And it just kind of builds from there.
For sure. That's cool. Now, do you guys do any sort of like internal, like social media type community things at all where you're like, hey, look at this, like I found this article and post it on there for everybody to see kind of thing?
Yeah. We have internal social media sites that are only open to our people. That's something that we've actually been working towards facilitating a little bit more. Again, for things like information sharing, or just, hey, like this is what I did this weekend.
Right.
So, somebody across the world that works for the same company has similar interests. Maybe I just ran a 5K. Oh, I just ran one too. Like, what was your time? That kind of stuff. We do a lot of that kind of stuff. We try and do, annual like get-togethers. We try and get like regionally, try and get local people together for even if it's, a couple members from my team and a couple members from another supervisor's team, but we go out and together, we'll get dinner or we'll do like an escape room or
Nice.
fun, just to, again, just make people not feel alone.
Yeah. And I think it brings a sense of like more community, more like family type, can
Mm-hmm.
do stuff and have fun together. It's not just like work, that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
It really changed. And I think that's changed with the culture and society too, a little bit more. I mean, just trying to think like back in our grandparents' day or whatever, the communication and stuff like between companies, like they couldn't grow that way, or the
Right.
communication wasn't good, so it was harder, and they didn't have that sense of life community as much doing things. And so like just seeing the change and progress and how
Mm-hmm.
technology is beneficial when used right, and so it's cool to see the change and the opportunities that come about from that. So you said you read a lot, but are you reading anything right now that's interesting or you're learning from?
Yeah, I mean, I'm reading a couple of different things. The probably the most impactful book that I've read,
Uh-huh.
is Extreme Ownership. I don't know if you've heard of
Yeah.
it or not.
Yep.
It's written by a couple of really bad dudes from the
Yeah.
Navy SEALs, right? And Jocko Willink and Lee
Yep.
Babin, and they basically, the premise of the book is um, owning up to everything that you do, everything that happens, within your team, ultimately falls onto you as the leader, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if one of your people makes a mistake, well, you as a leader have to kind of own that and say, well, maybe I could have trained him better, or I should have
For
trained,
sure.
or I should have done something, put him in a better environment, right? And so it just kind of helps change your perception of, rather than finger pointing and blame placing on somebody else, like it's taking it internally and saying, hey, like I got to do this better, and
Yeah.
it really kind of shapes your mentality as a leader and helps you look at things a little bit differently, for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a good book, and I know Jocko's podcast as well is really good. If you guys haven't listened to it either, it's a good one to get involved and listen to. He's got a lot of good information on there. So now, as far as the Pencil Leadership podcast goes, I'm trying to kind of get questions asked around what Pencil Leadership is. So we do like a 5-question kind of end of the show type thing that we'll go through each step of the Pencil Leadership. So the first one is like being a pencil leader. We can't do it alone. We have to be held by someone else to leave our mark, to be able to do and have a positive outcome in our life. So is there anyone who stands out in your mind as a mentor catalyst that has influenced you to where you've gotten today?
Yeah, man. Too many to name, just like I've been really blessed to have a lot of great leaders in my life, from family members to people that I work with to educators. Um, I've been really fortunate to be surrounded by people that I've learned
Mm-hmm.
different things from, and each person's kind of impacted me differently.
Gotcha.
I'll give my grandparents props, because both of my grandparents were both in the leadership field, and
Okay.
my grandmother was the vice president for a major banking corporation in the Northeast and the
Wow.
Midwest, and won all sorts of awards and all that
Hmm.
kind of stuff. But I also got to know her as a person and as a
Yeah.
human being and as a family member, right? So like
Mm-hmm.
seeing that balance was always really important for me, to see how she could balance being a really successful businesswoman, but also come home and be kind of the matriarch of our family, right? And
Right.
really lead our family to be stronger and more together. And I think she kind of sometimes used some of her leadership skills on us as well to get us to do things that we needed to do. But I would say that my grandmother and grandfather have both been really influential for me.
That's awesome. It's cool to see, yeah, just the generations, how they play an impact on the future.
For sure.
So for the second one, like a pencil, sometimes we go through painful sharpenings, quote unquote, things that are painful, hurt, aren't the easiest to get through, but lead us to becoming better, more effective. Do you have a memory or a time that you remember that something was painful, something didn't go as planned, wasn't a good time, but in the end made you better?
Yeah. I guess the first thing that comes to my mind is when I was a kid, probably 12, 13 years old, my wife,
Mm-hmm.
not my wife, good grief, my mother
Okay.
was diagnosed with cancer. And, thankfully, thank the good Lord, she's cancer free now,
Mm-hmm.
um, has been for a long time. But just kind of seeing her go through that diagnosis and see how positive she stayed, at least in
Hmm.
front of me,
Right.
as a kid, like, it was pretty impactful to see, like, life's not always awesome, right? Not everything
Right.
always goes great. Things happen.
Mm-hmm.
But it kind of taught me that how you respond to that stuff, that crap that happens in your life, is really what kind of shapes you as a person. It's what kind of defines your character. It's how it shows, how gritty you are, as a human being and what
Yeah.
you're made of. So that's probably the most, sticks out in my head the most.
Yeah, for sure. That's a big one. Yeah. I mean, that'll really can change how you have a outlook on life. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So the third one is, so pencils, they have erasers. So they're able to erase, kind of fix mistakes that are made. When you make a mistake, how do you go about attacking that mistake to correct it? Do you have anything specifically?
Um, yeah, I mean, owning it right
Mm.
away. It's kind of leading back to that extreme ownership
Yep.
book that I read, and just like there's no way around mistakes. Like, they're gonna
Right.
happen. So why try to place blame, or like it's human nature to make mistakes. So
Yep.
just own it, learn from it. Like, don't try not to make the same mistakes over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not making some sort of adjustment after that mistake to try and avoid it from happening again, then that's a problem, right? But
Yep.
they're gonna happen. So just own it, like, be brutally honest with it, attack it head on, like, go after the problem. Don't, like, hope nobody notices. Just like,
Yeah.
be just be a decent human being and just say, hey, I screwed up and I'm gonna fix it. And
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
the biggest thing is, like, sometimes you have to uh, look at it as an opportunity to work harder to fix something down the road. Like, I
Yeah.
also coach basketball on the side, and something I always tell my kids is, like, don't let your mistakes compound on one another, right? So
Yeah.
don't make this mistake, and then while you're sulking about it, another mistake happens, right? So let's use basketball for an example. If you miss a shot, right? You miss a shot that's an important shot, whatever.
Yeah.
We all miss shots. They have
Yep.
miss a
Yep.
shot while you're pouting about missing that shot. The other team gets the ball, takes on a fast break, and goes and scores on you down on the other side of the court, right?
Right.
So now, instead of you missing that shot, getting your butt back and playing defense and stopping them from scoring, right? You've now effectively, you missed your shot and you let them score.
Mm.
So now that's one mistake turned into two, and
Yeah.
probably going to start pouting about that, which
Yep.
you're going to miss the
Momentum
next
and
shot, and it's a snowball effect, right? So
yeah.
kind of take your mistakes and just stop them, right? Like,
Yeah.
try and do something to fix it. And when my basketball players, if they turn the ball over or if they whatever, I always made them yell out loud on the court, fix it, while they're running down.
Nice.
Like, the whole team had to yell, fix it, which means, like, you got five guys down there trying to work together. Like,
Mm.
point number one, you can't do it alone. Get down there, fix the mistake, and then that's the end of it, right? And you move on.
Mm-hmm.
But if you kind of just continuously let things bother you, or change your mentality, or
Yep.
down, or you want to sit there and feel sorry for yourself, that's no way to be. And it's a little easier said than done sometimes,
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
but that's something that I try and
Yeah. That's cool. I like that. Fix it. I like that. Making them yell that, making it
Mhm.
verbal and making it kind of real for them. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So as far as pencils go, obviously the lead, what's inside is super important. The outside could be beat up and chipped and stuff, but as long as the inside's good, you're still going to be able to leave a positive mark. So for you, what's the most like personal value, that internal morals, driving force, what's the most important one to you that you focus on?
Yeah. I mean, I could use like the stereotypical, like, honesty, integrity,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. But I feel like every true leader has those. So like that,
Mhm.
it's almost like cheating. Every
Right.
true leader should have honesty, integrity. If you don't, then you're probably not a real leader. You're kind of faking.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I kind of have two. The most
Okay.
important one to me is always my faith, right?
Yeah.
It's my faith in God. It's my faith in what I've been blessed with, and knowing that my gifts as a leader are not my own, right? They've been
Yep.
but I'll jump off of that pedestal and go a different route too, which I kind of alluded to when I was talking about my grandmother is balance, right? I think
Okay.
balance is huge for me. I mentioned I have a 3-year-old and a 1.5-year-old. I got a beautiful wife at home. Like I have a whole lot to live for outside of work. And,
Hmm.
um, I know like this whole work-life balance thing is a real, popular buzzword, and
Right.
like the older generations hate it, because
Yep.
they were, raised on, and the millennials and that generation loves to push it and kind of take it to its limits and use it as an
Yep.
excuse, to not always work as hard. But for me, like balance is a real value of mine, and it's something that I'm passionate about, right? I want to be able to be an effective leader at work and also at home, right? I
Absolutely.
make sure that I can learn different strategies, different ways to do that, and to make sure that both parts of my life are getting equal, parts of me, right? They're getting
Hmm.
equal, benefits of having me there and fully present. So that's
Yeah.
big for me.
That's awesome. Those are two really, really good ones. I agree with for sure. And the last one is, so as a pencil, obviously its job, its purpose is to leave a mark. However, that positive mark can be, no matter what material they're writing on. It might not be easy to leave the mark, but that's their goal. That's what a pencil is for. And so in that respect, for us, what is one way that you are trying or that you want to do to make a difference or leave your mark on the world?
That's a good question. Um, I mean, I think a big passion of mine, like I just mentioned, is that
Yeah.
balance. And I think that, um, I want to I want to cultivate like young leaders
Mhm.
to learn that balance as well. Like to learn that like you don't have to be, married to your job and only your job, right? You don't have to give 100% of your job or 100% to your job and 0% to something else. You need to learn that you can give 100% to your job and 100% to something else, right?
Absolutely.
And I think kind of helping other leaders and young leaders, fresh out of school, coming up,
Hmm.
helping them to learn that it's possible, and it's also something that they should strive for is really important to me. And that's kind of, my future vision is to be a part of, an organization that values me, and allows me to kind of utilize my strengths in order to kind of bring, that mentality and that leadership to others and help them maximize their potential. But again, remembering that, while they're navigating the professional world, which is, treacherous sometimes,
Right.
but they also, are a person outside of work, and
Yeah.
learning how those things kind of coexist is really important to me.
That's awesome. Yeah. The younger generation coming up, they have so much potential to make such a great impact, and being able to somehow leave a mark with them and kind of do whatever we can to help them. I think that's very, very good goal as far as like what impact we leave. So that's great. So, but DJ, again, we're so thankful that you are on the show, spreading your knowledge to our audience, and kind of just letting us get to know you a little bit more, and everything you're doing. And it's always a pleasure getting to know people like you. And so thank you again for being on the Pencil Leadership.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It's great talking with you.
Yeah, and we'll keep DJ's contact information down in the message below or in the description below, so you can always check out what he's doing, connect with him on social media or whatnot. So Yeah. Thanks again, and have a good one.